Hi, hello, and welcome to According to Weeze, the podcast, where we're going to have candid conversation with the hopes of finding a way forward in community. See, we exist and experience life at the intersection of our complex identities and our socio-cultural and political systems. And let's be real, the only way to dismantle it all is to start by dissecting it. So get cozy, get comfy, and let's dive in. Hello, hello, hello. So every time I do that, I actually hear Martin in my head and be like, what's up, what's up, what's up? But I can't do the same, so I don't. But I just think the listeners need to know that because they've heard so many episodes when I do that. And then really it's just my take to, honor Martin. Anyways, hi, hello. I think I say this every episode because especially this season, I very intentionally reached out to people. I crafted a season that was like a theme. It would take people through a journey. And, there's some people like yourself, and I'm doing the annoying thing that my listeners are going to be like, I hate that she's doing this right now because I'm not going to tell them who you are until the absolute last second. I reached out to folks like yourself who I had been following for a while and, weren't necessarily in community with, hadn't had an opportunity yet to really connect with, but, had reshared each other's stuff and had kind of a soft intro to each other via the socials. And then, through people that I know and love and trust. So it's by proxy, I'm you cool. I fucks with them. They fucks with you. I fuck with you. And so when I was thinking about this conversation that I wanted to have, that we're about to have, because I said it's a journey that the listeners are going through. It was really important to me to have this conversation. I was like, okay, I could do that. And I was like, no. There's only one person for the job.
Not little old me.
Little old you.
Little old Josh from Brooklyn.
Little old Josh. So today, y'all, I have Josh here. Josh Odam I always say from Healing While Black because everybody's IG to me is their thing. I'll be Weeze from According to Weeze because our lives are social media now because we can't go outside. But yes, hi, hello. I'm so happy you're here. Thank you so much.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Weeze.
You are so welcome. So Josh, your fancy, beautiful bio and all your links and things are going to be in the show notes. Mm-hmm. But what I like to do is I like to give folks the opportunity to give their own little intro about themselves in how you want to be known right now, in this moment, today, in the context of this conversation. I also like folks to provide their pronouns and their social identifiers just so that, one, we're modeling behavior so listeners know the importance of said things, and so that people can kind of start to have an understanding of how you're navigating the world and how the world is engaging with you based on those identifiers. So,
absolutely.
Take it away, Josh.
Thank you kindly. Hello. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here. My name is Josh. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm the founder and curator of Healing While Black, LLC. Healing While Black is an online platform dedicated to the mental health and wellness of Black and Indigenous, queer, trans, and non-conforming people. We have been rocking. I use the royal we a lot. So just if folks get confused. Again, it's not necessarily royal we because, we're all in community together. This does not exist without community, without the fan, without the friends, without the people. So I'm rocking now for about 4.5 years now. Healing While Black started from a space, wasn't really a great space in regards to my own mental health, but the page grew, the platform grew, the reach grew, the influence, it's even a weird word to say still, the influence grew. And I've been able to meet so many amazing people, such as yourself, such as Mike, such as Maria, such as the team, the fam, such as Jewel. It's been amazing. I am a diversity, equity, and inclusion professional by trade. That is my day job. I am also a certified trauma-informed life coach. That is another one of my passions. And I am working a lot right now with Black men of all experiences, doing coaching, supporting brothers and supporting brothers who are in the business of healing brothers. And I'm just really honored and thankful to be here to build with you because, like you said, we've been running in the same circle, but have not been able to connect together. So I'm just really, really honored and happy to be here with you.
The honor's all mine. I feel like we could sit here and be like, you're so smart. No, you're so smart. No, I'm appreciative. No, you're great.
I'm trying to get like you. I'm trying to get like you. I'm trying to get like you. I'm trying to get
exactly.
like you.
Nah, I'm trying to get like you. Okay, you said so many things that now I know people are like, oh, I totally get why Weeze brought him on. But I want to take a step back to give people a little bit of understanding and language. Because, I say trauma informed, and I actually now recently personally am playing with languaging of saying healing centered.
Yes.
Because so much as, melanated folks, Black, brown, indigenous folks, our trauma has become more than ever learning experiences for mainstream identity folks, for white folks. And so it's like part of my own reclamation is like, I'm no longer trauma informed because I don't want to be informed by the trauma and I don't want to allow that to be the thing that other people learn from.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like taking on our healing. So
Absolutely.
I have to name that because I want folks to understand, because they've heard me say healing centered for a while. They are the same thing. This is just my play on words. There's nothing wrong with saying trauma informed. But I realize I've never actually defined it for people. I've never explained it. And I think people just hear it and they're like, oh, that sounds cool. Right? Or like, and also, I don't know if you do this, Josh, but when you're actually a professional in something, so DEI, anti-racism, trauma-informed, and then people just like co-opt the language and then say they do that, and then you look at them and you're like, how, Sway? It like does something to my soul. It irks it to a deep level. So that being said, I have to be fair and also give you context as to why I'm asking you these questions.
No, of course.
I want the folks to understand, what does it mean to be trauma-informed? I'm going to break it down. So what does it mean to be trauma-informed? One, I want them to truly understand what it means so that when they're also looking at folks, coaches, educators, therapists, so on and so forth, especially for our melanated folks, what are we talking about when we say trauma-informed in terms of how we engage our healing practices and how we're holding space?
Absolutely. So I'm just going to pull from where I received my definition of trauma-informed care, which is from the University of Buffalo School of Social Work, or the Buffalo Center for Social Research. So just quoting this, trauma-informed care understands and considers the pervasive nature of trauma and promotes environments of healing and recovery rather than practices and services that may inadvertently traumatize. So when we talk about trauma-informed care, we're trying to assess for trauma as early as possible in the conversations that we're having in these. I don't do screenings because, again, I am not a licensed mental health professional. I am a life coach. And while the two may overlap, there are very definitive boundaries that I cannot and will not cross. I do not provide diagnoses. I do not provide psychological or psychiatric advice. My services are still supportive, but are not a substitute for the advice and the judgment and the training of a social worker, of a psychologist, of a psychiatrist, or what have you. It's a compliment.
I'm sorry. I'm just having a moment because I'm like, I already know how many conversations you probably have to have where you actually have to clarify this to people.
Yeah.
Because people try to avoid having to like really go to therapy. By being a coach myself, they're like, no, but I can just come to you. And I'm like,
no. And
so,
and
like, do both. Can we do both?
Right, we can do both. And I think there are reasons for that, right? There are reasons, there are very real reasons why people are averse to going to therapy, especially Black and brown folks. We know that there is a history attached to this that is violent, right? And we both know that cannot be erased. What I like to do is say, look, I cannot and will not legally nor ethically will I try to play therapist. I am a coach. If you don't feel comfortable, what I'm hoping is by the end of our time together, maybe it's something you will reconsider. If not, I can't force you, but know the difference. I need you to know the difference, and I need you to know where my training and my skill sets can take me, and where we need to include someone with a higher level of training. And that's something that I say in all of my consultations is that, look, I am happy and willing to work with you, and at the same time, there are certain things that are non-negotiable. If I hear a risk of self-harm or God forbid, I haven't had this experience in my time, but God forbid suicidal ideations, right? Or heaven forbid, ancestors forbid, a suicidal ideation comes to the forefront. We have to loop somebody in now. We have to, because now I'm not doing my job or my due diligence, not as just a coach, but as someone who is hearing someone who may be at risk of harming themselves or others. So just wanted to make that very clear, and knowing that while am training, right, and as we said before, the opportunities for further education and further licensure and credentials, all that stuff is available. I know what I can and cannot do right now. Right. And I want that to be very clear to my clients as well.
Let's detour for a second, because I had a follow-up question, but I think it's really important that we dive in a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
Because some of the listeners may not have grasped it.
Yeah.
You said, essentially, Black and brown folks don't go to therapy.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Because it's violent, because of the violence and the history of violence, right? Not only of the medical profession, but therapy, right? And social work specifically. Can you touch on that a little bit now? Just expand upon that?
Yeah. So we have to talk about the history if we're going to talk about how to, I don't like to use insular language, but if some folks, this may be the first time they're hearing the term decolonizing therapy. Actually, I just want to give another quick plug to decolonizing therapy. I think that's Dr. Jennifer Mullen. Decolonizing therapy, Dr. Jennifer Mullen. Yep. So on Instagram is a real amazing scholar practitioner. And I really do appreciate Dr. Mullen's work. So I still have to say, when we talk about the history of the psychological and psychiatric community being violent toward Black and brown people, we can go back to Dr. Samuel Cartwright, who created this fake diagnosis, if we can call it that, drapetomania, which essentially he was trying to assert that enslaved Black people who were trying to escape from bondage were maniacal. They were in states of mania, and thus another justification to uphold the practice of chattel slavery. We cannot divorce that from the lineage and the history of white psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers. And again, I'm just speaking from my own experience in this case, that when you think of social workers, right, the first thing you think of for a lot of us is like, look, if a social worker comes, somebody's kid is getting snatched from the household. Taken. Right? Like there's rarely a positive correlation with white social workers and Black communities. We need to have that conversation. We need to have that conversation around the history of incarceration that is linked to Black people and who are in need of intervention and care that were warehoused and put away. We have to talk about these things. We have to talk about these things if we're going to upend these things. And that's why I also recommend, if folks are looking for some great reading, I would also recommend The Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health by Dr. Rita Walker, and also The Psychology of Blacks by Dr. Joseph White. Those are really seminal texts that talk about there are reasons for this. It's not just that Black folks don't want to do these things. It's not that brown folks don't want to do these things. There are material concerns and fears associated with this field of quote unquote care.
Mm-hmm. Which is why I think, and it's just important to note here that because I've noticed this, right? When we hear things, just because it's the internet age, right? And everyone says everything online. And you hear things like, oh, Black folks don't go to therapy, or Indigenous folks don't go to therapy, whatever, melanated folks, right, don't go to therapy, as, kind of like as a point blank monolithic statement.
Right.
It's not because no one believes in healing. It's not because nobody melanated needs healing. It's because there is an inherent distrust.
Right.
Because it is actually safer to distrust those systems and institutions than to put your guard down and put yourself in a very vulnerable position, the position, of vulnerability you need to put yourself in order to truly heal.
Right.
and trust somebody to take you through that process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's safer to just avoid it than it is to go in there and then potentially have your harm completely exacerbated, your trauma exacerbated,
Mm-hmm.
because your real life lived experience based on your social identities is not only ignored, but the field itself does not take those things into consideration and doesn't take the history of the relationship of the field and the identities into consideration. So
Absolutely.
I really wanted to expand upon that because I think, amongst melanated communities, there's like the joke of it, but the reality is we need healing more than ever.
Right.
And the same institution that has and system that has caused us to need that healing is the same one that keeps us from being able to get the healing.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. Enter folks like yourself. And I will say there are, and I know you know them too, right? There are phenomenal melanated therapists that I will send clients to, right? When we say, can you do both? It's like, in integrity, I will help you find a person who is really going to hold you in your social identities and is going to decolonize therapy and all those things.
Yes.
So it's possible. It's possible, right? But this idea of healing is also super imperative. And unfortunately, it's not common and it's not highly accessible. And so enter Healing Wall, enter a lot of phenomenal organizations, but right now we're talking to you. So enter Healing Wall Black LLC. What were you seeing that made you decide I need to make this happen? I need to create this.
Yeah. So to just touch back on your earlier point is that the distrust and if folks don't follow Erica Hart, I truly recommend that they do.
I think they do because every single person that has come on this show, and including myself, has been like, Erica's last post, or Erica said they don't have a choice at this point. They've been punked into it by all of us.
And me as they should.
As they should, right?
Or as Levon said, a gentle nudge toward this. Not dragging nobody, not reading nobody, just gently,
just
loving,
a gentle nudge. And y'all remember Levon? That's Proverbs. She was on the last season.
Yes, God. Yes, but to the point, Erica Hart makes it really, really plain is that it's not only that we don't trust these institutions have violated our trust, right? And they have consistently violated our trust. So making it, the onus is not on us per se. The onus is on them. Like, no, y'all messed up. Y'all are the ones who did these things. Y'all are the one who made the spaces unsafe for us to come to you all. Y'all are the ones who continuously make the spaces unsafe for us to come to you. And actually, like you said, feel as if we're going to be affirmed in all of our identities and treated with care. So that brings me to myself, because when you asked me what I was seeing that compelled me to do this, I was just seeing what I was going through. And I have no problem to say that I am a survivor of suicide. I do attempt suicide. It's something that I don't run from. I don't hide. Like, if we're going to talk about it, we can talk about it because it's central to the creation of Healing While Black. And Healing While Black existed under another name, which was Free Negro University at the time. And I was stemming from, I was a part of a 2-year intensive for young Black men. We went to DC for 2 years. I met some of my closest friends there, and the idea spawned from there. Going back to Massachusetts, I was very much so depressed. I was very much so not in a good space mentally. I was a person who did a lot on campus in terms of activism. My sophomore year, a month before school started, Michael Brown was killed. So we were organizing all throughout the year. There were hate crimes, racist, anti-Black, anti-Latinx hate crimes on campus, which we had to organize through. And feeling like I was abandoning my friends, abandoning the movement, abandoning the struggle, if you will, if I took time for myself. Like, we didn't want to hear nothing about, or I didn't want to hear nothing about self-care. Like, get that shit out of my face. I got work to do, But in reality, it's not an if, it's a when these things catch up to you. When these stressors become too great, you can either take a break or the break will take you. And unfortunately, the latter took hold. And I wasn't in a great place. I wasn't in a great place at all. And withdrew from school. So I graduated in 4.5 years and was really trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, what I wanted to do. I was not going to law school. I didn't know if I was going to graduate, like as I said. So I was just really in this spiraling, just this downward spiral, if you will. And so, Healing While Black at the time was just a way for me to keep myself busy, keep myself occupied, because I know what would happen if I just stayed in the house. Like, it wouldn't be good. And eventually, the page grew. I moved with the help of very intentional therapists, Black therapists, with community, with my friends. I was able to get to a better space. And I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Do I want this to be a pro-Black page? Do I want this to be a political page? Do I want it to be a t-shirt company? I just didn't know what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And around April of 2019, my page got shut down. For some reason, I just got shut down. And it was at that time where I decided I want to make the shift toward the mental health field. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I think I wanted to be a psychiatrist at one point in time. I was like, I don't want to go to med school, man. Like, I don't want to take bio. That shit sucks. My sisters who just went through this med school process. It sounds awful. I want to do psychology. And just realizing that I didn't want to do psychology either, because I'm talking to a lot of my friends who are licensed clinical social workers and psychologists, and they were telling me, my friend Hakeem was saying that a lot of what I was doing, a lot of what I am doing when I'm diagnosing my clients, is that I'm diagnosing Black people's rage, and I don't feel comfortable doing that. I don't feel comfortable doing that. But like, to hear that said from someone in the field was very illuminating, because I don't want to diagnose Black people I don't feel comfortable. I never felt comfortable with diagnosing somebody if their quote unquote diagnosis is attributed to the conditions in which they're living in which we have not upended. But all that to say, Healing While Black took on that kind of a path, because it was really something like, I can't drive while Black. We can't do nothing while Black. Like, let's try to heal while Black. And really figuring out like what that would look like is an act that we're still trying to figure out. So moving from Massachusetts back to New York, taking a very deep dive into not only holistic healing, but also finding peer certifications, finding support services. And at the time, before I was doing coaching, knowing that if I can't be a practitioner, quote unquote, if I can't do the one-to-one work that I want to, how do I connect people to people who can do this, right? How do I be someone who can collect resources and bring them to folks who need it, and provide spotlights, just as you're doing, to people who are competent, who are culturally competent as the minimum, and have an anti-racist, anti-oppressive pedagogy and framework to their approach in regards to psychological care. So I said a lot there. That's kind of like the arc of the past four some odd years of Healing While Black. And it's been really amazing to see how the page has grown, how the community has grown, and how many amazing clinicians, Black clinicians, brown clinicians, who are dedicated to making life more bearable and tolerable for Black folks and brown folks. It's been an honor and a privilege to just be in community with y'all.
Yeah, I mean, it's really beautiful to watch the growth of something that is really like not meant to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Not meant to thrive, meaning all of the conditions systemically that that are in place are intended to make sure that healing is not an option, right? Because healed people are liberated people. You also said, right, and I mean, I know this, but you said, which I think is really important to name, that it's not just about Black identity, right? Queer, trans, and non-binary as well.
Yeah.
And so when you really kind of stepped out there to say, like, there's an intersection here that we can't ignore.
Right.
What was that additional layer for you that it was like, this is something that we have to really be talking about?
Right. No, absolutely. And again, not having to go further than my experience in that regard to, and I can only speak to my experience, right? I identify as a Black, cis, queer man,
Mm-hmm.
and I have access, I have resources, there's
Mm-hmm.
privileges that I can have. I've had multiple therapists, right? I can speak for myself. And even in that, right, I know my struggles with mental health were attributed in large part, to not only the anti-blackness I experienced, but also the queer antagonism I experienced,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like there's something to be said about, being called a faggot
Mm-hmm.
and having that being a weapon hurled against you by your middle school, high school, and college counterparts, right? There's
Yeah.
something to be said about, having to downplay or tamp down parts of your identity for the sake of the overall collective, you know? And again, research is just showing you, anybody I encourage folks to go to Baldwin Second Generation, the Sylvia Rivera Law Project, and look at the statistics of not only homeless or housing insecurity, food insecurity, rates of domestic and intimate partner violence that exist within Black and Indigenous, queer, trans, and non-conforming people. The numbers are terrible for Black and Indigenous people as a whole, and they often go underreported. So you can just imagine whatever statistics are available for our community. We have to just assume that these numbers are probably at least 5 percentage points worse than what they actually are because of the underreporting that is happening. So when we talk about this, when we talk about what are the particular problems that exist in the intersections, we also have to understand that we have to have an intersectional analysis. It is one thing to have a clinician who is learned in diversity, equity, and inclusion, whatever this means, because it's so vacuous that it means 15 different things to 15 different people. But what does
Mm-hmm.
it mean to have an anti-racist, anti-sexist, anti-queer and trans antagonistic framework when you engage with these clients? Right. And that's the thing that is not always talked about. What are you reading? What are you unlearning? Who are you bringing in to ground your research, ground your work, ground your engagement with these clients? Do you have any kind of entry to begin working? Do your communities trust you to work with you? That's a big thing as well. Like all
Mm-hmm.
these questions cannot be found in many schools of social work. So it really depends on the individual provider, practitioner, clinician, coach, what have you, to do the groundwork.
Yeah. 100%. So I want to take it. I'm going backwards now.
Hmm.
People might be like, wait, but we started talking about community. But I want to spin it back to a little bit ago, right?
Hmm.
We were talking about having to like deny parts of yourself,
Hmm.
and also then, right, in a what I call post-Ferguson era, because I was in St. Louis. So I know
Hmm.
that, right, like you're like, no, I gotta be in it, I gotta be in it, I gotta be in it. Like that what is self-care? Right. So you're like, what is self-care? Like what is stopping? What
Yeah.
is taking care of myself? What is accessing my own healing? Like who does that? Nope, 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 nope. Right. Before I ask you about radical softness, because that's where we're going with
Hmm.
this, because I
Hmm.
love the term and I want you to
Hmm.
talk about it. Talk to us a little bit about how much like basically like socialization and societal expectations,
Hmm.
especially being a Black man in America, played into this mentality that you held around like self-care is not an option, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no stopping, there's no, like must grind, must do, must keep pushing.
Hmm. Yeah. I think it starts with, the understanding that for a lot of us, we see our parents, guardians, loved ones, elders who did not have as much access as we did work incredibly hard to give us more than what they had, right? So there's a responsibility that we take on, an obligation that you have to move the family forward. You have to bring the family to a higher plateau. That means you have to work hard. You have to grind. You have to do this. You have to do that, because look at what my grandparents did with a fifth grade education, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not downplaying what they did, right? Not, of course not. Like I am the beneficiary of my grandparents' hard work, right? That is bar none. And that is a gift that I can never repay. And at the same time, knowing, taken out of context and taken with this idea that I have to be working every single day, 14-hour days. I have to be taking 20 plus credits. I have to be taking, or at least in college, taking 20 plus credits, heads of like 3 different RSOs or registered student organizations, doing research, doing diversity work, and, trying to find like 13 minutes of sleep in between that. That is not sustainable.
13.
That's not,
if you're lucky.
If you're lucky, you find a couple of minutes to catnap here and there. Knowing that it's not sustainable, but also feeling like, well, this is the only path that I have to take. In that, also, and there's so many places we can go with this, is this idea of, and I also learned this in therapy. Shout out to Don, my therapist. I was doing a lot in regards to like my position as the oldest. I was the oldest son. I am the oldest son. And so for a lot of times, I was moving as like the family hero, right? The one who is going to be the person to handle everything, the one that's going to take the family to the higher plateau, as I said. So you operate as like, all right, look, I got to grind. I'm the oldest. I got to set the example. I got to set the mold. And you lose yourself in that process. And then on top of that, understanding that I am one of 800 students on a campus of 800 Black students on a campus of 27,000. I'm one of 300 Black men, and one of the few, well, not few, but one of the seldom who are not here via athletics. So that's already an additional added pressure to be exceptional and try to prove to these white people that I'm not a diversity quota, I'm not a diversity admit, and I'm not here on an athletic scholarship. There's nothing wrong with being there on an athletic scholarship, but feeling that I have to go the extra mile to prove my worth to people who don't give a fuck about me anyway. So all of that to say, pushing through that was the way in which we internalize success. Success is linear. Success is a straight line prophecy. And if you didn't get there, it's your own fault. And that was the way a lot of us still internalize what happens. Like, if you break down, it's because you're lazy and you're weak and you didn't have what it takes to make it through. So you deserve whatever shitty treatment that you get. And I'll stop there because we can continue on for this for a long time. But like, it was a lot to unlearn that. And I also shout out the NAP ministry to say that, like, I deserve rest just as anybody else. Like, I can't not rest. It's not sustainable. It's not possible for me to do the work that we do and not take the rest as seriously as the hustle.
Yeah. NAP ministry is another one next to Erica Hart that everybody's like, so on NAP ministry yesterday. Rest is revolutionary. I've been trying to tell people. But anyways, so take us a little deeper before we get into radical softness. Take us a little deeper even into this idea of having to, like, essentially on top of, right, eldest son, having to pedestalize yourself, right, in the face of the collegiate experience with white folk and, right, and, that dynamic and duality of like honoring ancestors and grandparents and parents and all the work that they put in, right, and that responsibility, as well as the knowing that you have to be exceptional, right, or feeling rather that you have to prove that you're exceptional.
Right.
How much of the kind of like heteronormative tropes around Black masculinity also played into like the aloofness that people might have prescribed to you?
Yeah. And I can say this definitively to know that, like, I was definitely struggling with my own internalized queer antagonism at the time. So realizing that a lot of what I was doing was just like, man, like, you need to stop. This isn't you, bro. Like, you're not this person, right? Of course, you have this want and desire to help people and to be an advocate and a change agent. But like, this person who is, I didn't feel or want to be put in this idea of like the singular charismatic Black male leader. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I don't want to do this. And this is not what is needed first and foremost. This is not what's needed to push the movement forward, if you will, in regards to cannabis activism. This is not what's needed for anybody to achieve any semblance of wins and progress. And at the same time, knowing that, well, like, hey man, like, I didn't sign up for this, but I'm here now, and like, people depend on me, so thus I got to do this. Right? I have to do this because, like, who am I to say no, right? Who am I to take time for self? Like, that's selfish if you do it. And like, just leaning back into this idea of like, look, man, like, yo, men sacrifice, or men are supposed to sacrifice and do what is necessary to be done. Now, mind you, like, is that always true? No, but idealizing this idea of like setting yourself on fire to keep people warm, that was a tenet of masculinity that I clung on to, because I was like, all right, look, well, hey man, like, look what I'm doing, and look how much I'm doing, and like, look how hard I'm working, and I don't need help, and I'm gonna be okay. And like, look, these white folks didn't break me. Like, and in fact, one of the things that I use to justify my own breakdown was that the year that we were doing so much organizing, that was my best academically performing year. Like, I made the dean's list twice that year. So I'm like, see, look, I'm fine. Look, I'm outperforming these white folks, and I'm doing twice as well. But, you know, just realizing that you're just putting distance between yourself and the thing that is causing you pain. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do the work to say, look, I'm kind of afraid, you know, some folks are trying to kill us. And, you know, they said it in plain English. They wrote it on my door. And I'm like, nah, man, fuck that shit. I'm cool. I'm good. We got to do this thing and continue to grind and hustle and advocate. But I was like, nah, I'm scared. I'm scared shitless, actually. But you couldn't really say that, because to say that is to say, like, you know, the white people, you can't let them win. And I'm like, this isn't about them winning. This is about me surviving. Right. You know, and like, when I was able to differentiate that, like, I don't give a fuck about white people winning or losing, because in actuality, the fact that we're here means that they already won, right? So to hell with all of these different tropes and these different, you know, platitudes. I need something different to help me get through this, and to try to be somebody's, you know, martyr. That's not what I want to do anymore.
Yeah. Kelly is a perfect segue. So talk to us about radical softness.
Yeah.
I love it. I was like on the website and was like, this is so cool. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Anyways, go. Talk about it.
Of course. So, so radical softness is a concept that was originated by Laura Mathis. It's the idea that sharing your emotions is a political move and a tactic against a society which prioritizes a lack of emotion. And I resonated with that really heavily when I was in graduate school, in that I was trying to find a way to make sense of what had transpired. I'm in this like liminal space of like, I'm not an undergrad anymore, but I'm not really an adult, and I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm like, all right, like, what do I do here? And like, just feeling very defeated at the time. And it's like, I can't tell anybody I feel defeated. So my first real foray into radical softness, I would say, happened in, I think it was March of 2018. I actually made these shirts that had these different graphics that said, like, you know, I've cried like 5 times in the past 6 years, and like, anti-Black racism has left me with serious things. Everything I was feeling, I didn't say, just put it on a shirt, and like, it was like black and white backdrop. I was in front of this white wall. My friend Alvin took the pictures, and he was like, man, this is a lot, man. Like, I'm learning how to heal as a Black man, you know, shit like that. You know, like, I have my days. Like, I just really, and then the last one was like, yo, like, I just really need to be held, bro. Like, you know, that was the thing. And like, a lot of my friends called me, and like, they were crying, and I'm like, man. So still trying to like get like, you know, trying to like shake off that, like, all right, man, whatever. But like, also realizing it's like, no, like, you know, this is what happens when you allow yourself to be expressive with emotions. And having that opportunity to do that was really, really liberating. That one of my friends, Melissa, I sent her like the trial shots, And she said, like, it's a really amazing and tragic juxtaposition in that, like, like physically, like you're this big, large man that takes up a lot of space, but like you can see in your eyes, like you look like a little kid that just needs to be told it's going to be all right. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, damn, I didn't even know that. I didn't even see that. It was just really transformative, and wanting that to be a grounding ethos in regards to my work, in regards to my life, because we're not soft with each other. Like, none of us are. We don't live in a world, in a society that values softness. It's not something that is given much credence, especially as people of color, especially as men of color and as Black men. Like, that's not something that we really value. And it's not all our fault, right? We understand like a lot of this is conditional, but we also perpetuate it. So knowing that, it ain't easy, and like sometimes I do not live up to my own ideas, but when I try to, I was like, look, man, you got to just give yourself more grace and allow yourself to be a person who feels a lot, especially given the fact that we're still in a panoramic. Like, we all need grace. And I think this is also on Erica's page as well. Like, we all just need a lot more than anybody can give at the moment. And right now, radical softness is needed more than ever.
Yeah. So I hadn't ever heard of the concept or the term until, I was like being a creep on your Instagram, obviously, because that's what you do at 1 o'clock in the morning and you can't sleep, and you be like, oh, Josh said something interesting. Oh, Josh has a new link. Oh, well, now I'm here. And somehow I got here. No, just me. Okay. So, but so when I was introduced to it via, your page, it also really made me think of, like, so everything you said, and the way in which actually like this concept of softness has even been weaponized against melanated folks, and specifically Black folks, right? So it's like white femininity gets to be soft and gentle, and that soft and gentleness is an excuse for white men to be more violent than they typically are, right? And so like that weaponization, or the narrative of the angry Black woman, right? So like denying her humanity and denying her the ability to be soft, to almost as though she's incapable of it, right? So again, it's like, so, and to your point, right? You're like, yes, it's perpetuated. Yes, it's not completely, it's created already, right? But it really made me think of just the word soft, and like how even committing ourselves to radical softness is actually really revolutionary. And it's not only something that we need for ourselves, but it's such like a reclamation of our own humanity. And it's, to me, I was like, this is the like low-key dopest fuck you to whiteness. Like, I can't even like intellectualize it beyond that. I was like, this is the slickest middle finger to whiteness, because it's right. So adored radical self-love is an act of political warfare. I was like, this is like very much along those same lines. Like, but it's all about like your own softness, your own humanity, like being open and soft to be able to say things like, I just need a hug. No, I'm not okay. Right? Like, I need grace. I just need someone to tell me it's going to be all right. I need to be held, right? Whatever the thing is. So thank you for introducing me to the concept, because it's really got me like spinning and thinking. And it's even, got me in a place, because I've been called sharp, violent, harsh, aggressive, angry, like on a regular basis by white folks. Because I have the audacity to name whiteness and then use my racial ambiguity to protect folks who are deeply melanated, right? Who don't have the safety that colorism provides, and that ambiguity provides. And I used to, it's still something that, I'm grappling with, is like the way it makes me feel when people say that, because kind of we started out right by saying like, you're like, I'm none of the things that people project onto me, but it still makes you feel a kind of way. Absolutely. So I'm like, I've been playing with this idea of radical softness, and like, if I can really commit to it for myself, then would that allow me to let go of the reactivity that comes up when people weaponize, right? Like all sorts of tropes, intimidating, blah, blah, blah against me. So I'm curious to know, like, what has that shift done for you? And I'm selfishly asking because like I'm just on this, I'm on my own journey around it just from learning about it on your page. And you're way ahead. You've been on it for a little while.
I think for me, it's been freeing in a lot of ways in regards to I don't have to do any of this. When I say any of this, I don't have to subscribe to any of these tropes that you put forth for me. Any of them. Like none at all. And again, as you said, I'm also recognizing there is a deep power that I have as a cisgender man, and I'm tall, I'm big, like nobody tries me, right? In regards to I have more freedom and more wiggle room to figure out what radical softness looks like for me because I have that safety. So like I'm happy that we're having this conversation because we can't. And even Laura Mathis says this. It's like the interviewer asked, I don't know Laura's pronouns, but asked Laura, like, well, what does radical softness look like for other people? Well, like Laura said, I'm white. I can't determine what that looks like for other people because I'm moving with the safety of whiteness. And so it's important. It's incredibly important. It's pivotal to name that we can move through these concepts with more leeway because of the social identities that are giving us power and they are giving us safety. And even in that, right, knowing that the biggest thing for me is that I don't have to do any of this shit. I don't have to walk around with this scowl on my face. I don't have to walk around, purposefully angry. I can be joyful. I can allow joy in my life. I can do those things and be intentional about doing them. And I don't have to explain that to anybody. And if that is such a contradiction that it bothers people and it frightens people, that is a them thing and not a me thing.
Yeah. I love that you named that because that's super important, right? Safety looks different based on our social identities and the power dynamics in any given situation at any given time.
Right.
And also the fact that, sometimes you have to put on, for female socialized folks, right? What do we get called? The resting bitch face? And that's something that, like, as you're talking, I'm like, I used to be a smartass about it. People would be like, you have RBG. And I'd be like, do I? Or have you put me in a situation to where I've had to create a cloak of, right, like a lack of approachability or anger or, right, like being off-putting because I needed to literally create physical distance. I didn't want to seem warm and welcoming because you felt dangerous or the situation felt dangerous or whatever, right? I'm like in my own brain now. This is dope. I love when this happens. I love when this happens. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go journal. Like this is going to become a blog post because I've started writing again. So, but this is dope. I really want to encourage everybody. I mean, throughout this conversation, you should have been kind of hopefully taking in nuggets and being really introspective about it and how it, if you're melanated and specifically, Black and then Black men, queer, trans, gender nonconforming, right? Like, how do you see any of yourself in this and where can you reach out to, whether it's Josh or another person to be able to say, right? Like, I just need to be held. I need to know it's okay. Or I don't know what I need, but I know I need something. Or I just need to be in a space where that's okay. And for everybody across social identities, my question now is like, what kind of, and I don't know, Josh, if you've thought about this, like, what kind of society would we actually live in if we actually first individually, so I hold the belief that we liberate others by way of our own liberation. If we all committed to radical softness for ourselves, since of course it's going to look different for everybody based on how, they experience the world, while simultaneously committing to like having each other's backs, right? like for advocating and protecting those that don't have the safeties that we have based on those social identities. Like if we could do both at the same time, what kind of world we could actually create?
I mean, the possibilities are infinite and limitless, right? If we're assuming those as the baselines and everyone is making a definitive commitment to moving personally and politically with those ideas in mind, like you name it, like whatever is possible, like reparations for Black people is incredibly possible. A world without capitalism is possible. A world without violence against femmes is possible. A world without borders is possible. A world that does not depend on non-renewable energy is possible if we're thinking about how are the most marginalized among us impacted by the decisions that we make. And if a part of that issue is a total disavowal of softness, then how do you continue to cage children at a border, right?
Yep.
You know, how do you continue to summon the police on Black people, right?
Okay.
How do you drop bombs on children in the quote unquote Middle East, right? How do you continue to move with fossil fuel and non-renewable energy when we know that climate change is going to impact Black and Indigenous people of color first? So all those things are possible if we're going to make a commitment to that on a communal, individual level. And I was having a conversation with my friend about, well, what has to happen in order for that to come about?
That would be my next question.
Yeah. Well, I think this can also be another episode, is that a lot of us, myself included, right? I'm not going to divorce myself from this. You know, a lot of us are confusing liberation with reversing the poles, right? Or some of us just want our turn to oppress. Some of us want to.
I need you to say that again and a little louder, because I agree that this is a huge problem, and I really don't want people to miss this.
No, and I was saying that a lot of us confuse liberation work for wanting our turn at bat, right? Our turn to oppress, or our turn to corrupt, and our turn to plunder and pillage. And like, that's not it, right? Black capitalism ain't gonna save you, dog.
No.
Brown capitalism, rainbow capitalism isn't gonna save you.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, someone is still going to suffer, and more often than not, those someones are still going to be Black and Indigenous people of color, are still going to be poor people, are still going to be queer, trans, and non-conforming people, are going to be people living with neurodivergence or different mental health abilities and whatnot. So a brown face, a Black face, a queer face in a high space does not equal the collective condition for the masses bettering, right? The construction of this was one that requires us to be continually oppressed, right? Again, all not hoping, because hope isn't a strategy, but like moving with intention and really trying to exercise from my life is this idea of like, I just want my turn at bat, right? I just want my joint. I just want my ability to, to hang up on top for a little while, and knowing that, yeah, like this might be cool for me and my peoples, and like my very few peoples, but like this don't do nothing for the collective of people. And if that's the case, like what am I even doing?
Yeah. I think that's super, super important for two reasons. One is because what that belief does is create a fallacy that once we see folks with marginalized identities in positions of power, that like somehow we fix things, like Kamala Harris being VP, all of a sudden it's like, racism's over. It's all good. No, one. And two, I probably quote Audre Lorde more than the average person, I'm now realizing. But the master's tools cannot dismantle the master's house, right? Which I've always interpreted to mean exactly that. Like we can't use the same systems that have been weaponized to oppress us and just flip roles and use those same tools and weaponize that same system. We have to burn down the entire house to the ground and then collectively choose to rebuild it on equitable, not equality, equitable, right? An equitable playing field. And I think that's super, super important because then you have so many, if we don't get clear on that, it's like you have a bunch of people who think racism is over. You have a bunch of folks who think that Black and brown liberation means white oppression of all racial identities, right? And then you bring in, regular racism and then anti-Black racism, and then they get in competition with each other, and like then colorism. And it's like at that point we're just playing like Tetris and moving things around, but fundamentally the blocks still look the same overall, even though the small pieces within it are moving.
And that's why language is so important, right? And that's why we need to continue to uplift and look to those who gave us a blueprint and a roadmap, such as Audre Lorde, right? We have the framework to continue this work, right? We have this, and that's something that really needs to be that can't be overstated. Like we have these tools, right? They can be modified, right? They can be updated, of course, like anything can, right? Like what is scholarship except call and response? We continue to build off the legacies of our predecessors, but it's still there. Like the foundation is still there and is one that is solid enough to take us where we need to go.
Yeah. That's why I've always said this work is the work of picking up the baton. Once, the ancestors have passed it on, we have to pick it up and just keep running and pass it on to the next generation. So speaking of passing it on, before we wrap it up, what's like, is there anything else that you're like, I have to say this thing around healing, or, what healing means or what healing should and could look like? And I will say, I know that you don't do this, but this is a new thing that I'm doing on the show where like, because I'm also doing it in the real world on Instagram, because I've realized that when you don't explicitly say this, white folks think that you're talking to them because they're so used to everyone centering them, and we decenter whiteness here, as I know you know. Speaking directly to melanated folks, to Black, brown, indigenous folks, right? Everyone else, white folks, like y'all will learn too, by default. You're welcome. But speaking specifically to melanated folks, what can you say to them, like just a gem, a nugget, like a parting gift, if you will, around their own healing and healing journeys?
I'll say that healing was not linear before COVID, and healing definitely is not going to look linear during and post-COVID. I do believe, we know that there's going to be a world, in which we're not wearing masks and we're not socially distant anymore. And the trauma, the pain, the grief is still going to be there, right? There was a mental health crisis coming before the pandemic really took hold, and this did not do anything to help or alleviate that crisis. So I really make it a point to tell my homies who are embarking on their healing journeys that like, this is not straight line prophecy, right? This is not formulaic, right? This is not something to where like, you can just do this for X amount of days or weeks or months, and then you get, it's not destination based, it's journey based. And I say this because I found myself getting incredibly discouraged when I thought the healing wasn't happening fast enough, or I didn't think it was working, because I was still having these various thoughts and I knew like in times I was backsliding, and I was still leaning on coping mechanisms that were not getting me to where I felt like I needed to be. And I really would like to impart to all my Black people who are listening, all my Black and indigenous people of color who are listening, something we said earlier, like this is the time for grace and the time for softness it's been here, but it's incredibly necessary right now. Like we have to be graceful with ourselves in regards to our own healing journeys. We're all needing a lot. We're all dealing with a hell of a lot. And some folks may not be on the journey. Some folks may not be where they want to be on the journey. Some folks are just starting. Some folks have been on the journey for a while now. And it's really important to just be graceful with yourself, because this healing, like, my healing journey looks different than Weeze's healing journey. Weeze's looks different than mine. Not better or worse, just different, because we're different people. We've been through different things, and we're processing everything, especially the pandemic, very differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's it's just, and this is, due to social location, due to experience, due to identity, due to all the different things that comprise the human experience. And that's why it's so important to just be graceful and know that this healing thing, it is not easy, it is necessary, and it is not something that happens in a straight line, but it does happen. And I think we're a testament to that, and that the healing does happen. You might notice it at the most inopportune time, but it does happen. And
I'm at the point with the panty where, like, every morning I wake up and I'm like, I'm gonna be one of those people that the pandemic is over just because I'm over it. And then 20 minutes after I've had my coffee, I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm socially responsible. I'm not gonna do that. But like, that's where I'm at. Like, I have reckless thoughts at this point. Whereas like in the beginning, I was like, no. But like literally just for fun, I'm like, let me pull a Ted Cruz. How much does it cost to go to Cancun now?
Listen, I've been on many a days with my friend Diana. I'm like, I can just pull up to Louisiana, right? I can get on a plane. I can go to Miami,
Like, it'd be fine, right?
Right?
I'm like, how far can I drive without having to stop and use a restroom?
Right. I'm in the Northeast, so like it's very far.
Right. And I'm in expansive ass California, so I'm not stopping in Modesto. Sorry, Modesto. But, ain't nothing from here for hours that I would go to. Anyways. All right. So one of the last things I do on the show, because it's very important to me to do this with my community, is to literally just ask, mind you, remember, all your links, all the things are going to be in the show notes. So other than the obvious things, the follow me on Instagram, right? And like tell people I'm amazing. You wouldn't say that, but I would say that. Everybody go tell everyone that Josh is amazing. What can we do to support you right now? What does support look like for you?
Outside of the regular spiel, support looks like I have a lot of friends who are doing a lot of amazing work. And so if you would like to support me, I have friends in St. Louis who are collecting funds for scholarships. That's my friend Mike over at the Free Roots. My friend Jewel has, I don't know, how did I forget to talk about Jewel until now? Jewel the Gem is a amazing friend and healer and curator, and has been curating the Sunday Survivor series for the past almost 8 to 9 months now. Please go check out the Sunday Survivor series. If you have resources that will support the Jules endeavor, shout out to all my friends, LaShanae, Julius, Aura, Zolani, Leilani, Dr. Grant. I know I'm forgetting people. I'm so sorry. Nyala, and
this
Crystal.
Is the most, I love this. This is the most like blackest everybody get a shout out community love ever. And I'm so happy you're doing it.
This game, bro. This is the squad.
I love it. No, I love it. I'm so here for it. I'm like, just keep naming people, Aura, whatever.
Or I gotta shout out beloved Aura. Yeah, so I said all this to say a lot of people are doing a lot of amazing things. And if you want to support me, support them. And I have no problem connecting folks. I have no problem being an introduction to people who are literally all across the States, the UK and Canada, doing work for Black people to have a better quality of life on a grassroots level, on a healing level, on a spiritual level. And I'd love to just be another person to help connect people to dope ass people.
Yeah. I will say, because folks that follow me know, and my listeners know, like, I always say vet everything, trust nothing. Like, number one rule, vet everything, trust nothing, right? For whatever reason, whether it's somebody's trying to play the system or it's just whiteness or whatever. And so because of that, and because I move in integrity, I have the honor of being trusted, right? So when I post things, people are like, we trust that this has been vetted. So I say all of that to say, y'all can trust in Josh in the same way. So you do a really good job of like posting like when people are doing crowdfunding or, need support in any kind of way. So as an extension of everything that Josh said, go follow Josh. Look at what he posts. Look at his stories. There's always something in there. Also, the Sunday Survivor Series is amazing. And also, Mike, Free Roots, like everybody, like the way that human rights, everybody go follow all the people that Josh just named. And really stay tapped in, because one of the things that I keep pushing all of y'all to do, now I'm talking to them, Josh, because I know you already know this. Yep. One of the things that I keep pushing all of y'all to do and to remember is that your anti-oppressive, anti-racism journey is not a moment. It is a journey. It is exactly that. There's no summit of woke mountain. And so if you are going to truly be committed to this work, it's not just about making sure that you're dismantling all of the systems that exist inside of you, that you're unsettling and decolonizing, right? Depending on your social identity, all of the ways in which you've been socialized and indoctrinated to uphold and serve whiteness. It's about making sure that you are also making a shift to serve the revolution. And that can look like very small things, posting and reposting. $5, that $5 coffee that you were going to spend, on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe you make it at home that day. And that $5, instead of going to your local whoever, unless it's a black-owned coffee shop, Starbucks, is going to a different fund or a crowdsourcing or, some sort of resource to truly help people. I know that everybody wants to be involved with the really, really big orgs, and the really big orgs are great. But the reality is that I keep telling y'all need to listen to those closest to the pain, which means that grassroots organizations are the ones that you need to tap into and the ones that you need to be listening to most, because they're the ones whose voices are not being heard. So if you didn't take anything from what Josh just said, I'm banging you over the head with it. That's what you need to be doing. One, I'm going to plug this for you. Are you still accepting funds for the Coaching Brothers? I think it was like 12 Brothers. Did I make that up?
Yeah. So we're not taking any more funds for that, but thank you though.
Okay. Are you going to be doing anything like that in the future?
Yes. So I work in 3-month sessions. So the next cohort will be finished around June 1st. So be on the lookout for that as well. If you would like to contribute now for an additional 12 brothers that are in the future, but just knowing that for this cohort, for this round, thank you so much to community. Thank you so much to Jamila. I've been working with Jamila so closely, and I truly appreciate the love and the support. And if you would like to sponsor somebody in the future, you can feel free to do so. My Cash App is Healing While Black. My Venmo is Healing While Black. I also have a Patreon, so we can definitely talk about ways in which we can continue to show love and support the community.
Perfect.
But thank you all so much.
You're welcome. All right. Well, Josh, thank you for being here. I feel like there's at least 4 other episodes in my head now that we have to do. So you have to come back. You don't have to. I would love for you to come back.
I will be there. I will be there. Whenever you call, I will come through.
Yes. Perfect. All right, y'all. Until next time. Bye. All right, y'all. That's all I got. But don't forget your action items. 1, join me on Podia, where you can get access to tons of BTS content, including a very special Weeze and Josh interview with all of our guests. 2, rate, review, especially a written review, subscribe, like, and share this podcast with all of your peoples. 3, if you aren't already, go peep me on IG, follow me there, and, most importantly, keep coming back. All right, until next time, toodles!